Hey all you tricksters, welcome back to the channel for another great eShop deals video. Today I've got another 10 games for you on sale right now that I think you should seriously consider for your Nintendo Switch collection. So let's not waste your time and let's jump right into these deals. Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling is currently 50% off for $12.49. Now this is basically a Paper Mario clone through and through. You play as 3 bug adventurers on a quest for the Everlasting Sapling, which is sort of a legendary fountain of youth. But it's very similar to Paper Mario. You've got a long adventure meeting all kinds of quirky characters. There's a very strong sense of humor. Has that same Paper Mario style of combat where it's turn-based, but you've also got all these action commands to really kind of spice up the combat. But I want to give Bug Fables its due because it's not just a Paper Mario clone. It definitely builds on top of that. The combat system includes all 3 of these bugs, and it has a new system where you can shift your characters for who is in the front. And that basically affects a sort of aggro stat for whoever's in the front will take up most of the hits. And then depending on where you are will change what moves you can use. This was probably my #1 game of 2020. Again, if you are a Paper Mario fan yearning for the old Paper Mario style games, this is the one you've been waiting for. It's been sitting on the eShop for the last couple of years. You don't need to wait any longer, and you can pick it up right now for 50% off. Shinsekai Into the Depths is currently 50% off for only $9.99. Now, Metroidvanias are a dime a dozen on the Nintendo Switch. There's so many to choose from, but Shinsekai is really unique. The basic premise of the game is that the overworld has become uninhabitable because of constant global warming, which has caused this sort of ice to cover the entire globe. And you and the last remnants of humanity have taken to the ocean, and that is where you now inhabit. So your character is making his way deeper and deeper into this ocean to try to find other survivors. It's a really unique Metroidvania. I can't even think of one to compare it to, but you're going to be doing a lot of resource collecting and then ultimately making your way deeper and deeper down into the ocean. It's definitely one of the most underrated Metroidvanias. Doesn't get a lot of love. I think you should definitely check it off for 50% off. By the way, at any point, if you feel like you're getting value from this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss any videos, including I'm going to be doing a deal showcase for Kaze in the Wild Masks, which is also on sale right now. My deal showcases are a bit of a deeper dive into a game that is on sale, and so that will be coming very soon. Shovel Knight Treasure Trove is currently 35% off for $25.99. It's an expensive indie game at this point, but there is probably no other game on the eShop that gives you more bang for your buck. Treasure Trove at this point, I believe, is 5 separate games. They've kept adding on and adding on. It's now, I think, finally complete. They're not adding on anymore. But if you are a fan of old school NES style games, the Shovel Knight games are absolutely the top tier representation of retro throwbacks. You've got 4 different adventures where you can play as various different knights within this universe, and they all have very different styles of playing and the way they move around and combat. And then there's a 5th game, which is Shovel Knight Showdown, which is basically a little Smash Brothers clone playing as the characters from Shovel Knight. So don't be scared off by the slightly higher price than other indie games. This one is absolutely worth it. At 35% off, it's a real bargain. Heave Ho is currently 60% off for only $3.99. Now, I think I've talked about Heave Ho before, but it came up again, and I just love it so much. I want to mention it again. I think, for my money, this is the absolute best co-op party game on the Nintendo Switch. The concept is so super simple. You and your other players will all be playing as these little blob-like creatures with 2 arms. The basic gameplay is the sticks will move the arms in different directions, and your shoulder buttons will cause each one to have a gripping hand. So basically, you and your comrades are going to be making your way through levels, gripping and swinging your way over all kinds of crazy obstacles. It creates some really hysterical moments where you're trying to yell out for someone to grab your hand and try to swing them over to a spot where they need to be. My kids in particular really enjoy this one. We've played it many times. It's always a hit. So make sure you seriously consider picking it up right now for only 60% off. Death's Door is currently 35% off for only $12.99. Now, this is a really fantastic, I guess you would call it a Zelda-style adventure game, but you play as a raven whose job is to retrieve souls that have passed on and take them to their destination in the afterlife. But unfortunately, some of these characters are not wanting to go where they belong, and it is your job to go in, find them, and defeat them and bring them to where they need to go. The whole game has a really great sort of moody atmosphere, but there's still actually some real flashes of comedic brilliance and some funny little bits. So it's lighthearted, but also kind of serious at the same time. But there's plenty of cool upgrades, an amazing fluid combat system. This is just a super addictive, super polished adventure game. Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions is currently 50% off for $19.99. Now, let me be straight with you. This is not a perfectly executed game, but if you've been wanting a nice arcadey style boxing game, this is actually really solid. I would actually say it kind of splits the difference between a more simulation style like Fight Night and something that's almost like Street Fighter or Tekken. But I really like the stylized look to the characters. Again, it kind of splits the difference between something cartoony and something realistic. It's really addictive. It's simple fun. And if you love arcade boxing style experiences, I think you're actually going to like this one a lot. Splasher is currently 75% off for only $3.74. Now, Splasher comes to us from the same team who just brought us Tinykin. And just like Tinykin, Splasher is a really inspired, finely tuned platformer. But rather than Tinykin, this is a 2D style, more akin to a sort of Super Meat Boy-esque kind of gameplay. Basically, you play as this character who is trying to escape this facility, and you are using different types of inks or paints, I believe, and you can paint the walls, and these inks have different reactions depending on which color you use. So some inks may cause you to bounce, some may allow you to stick to walls, and this is all wrapped up into a precision platformer, again, that's very similar to Super Meat Boy. So if you're up for a big challenge and you've really been yearning for another great precision platformer and you've never tried out Splasher, this is a stellar deal to pick it up on. Scourgebringer is currently 45% off for $9.34. Now, I'm not kidding when I say this is one of my favorite roguelikes in the entire Switch library. This is a really fast and frenetic, powerful feeling combat platformer. This is one of those games where right away your character really legitimately feels powerful and only goes up from there with the roguelike upgrades. But again, this combat system is so fluid. You are going to be zapping from one baddie to another, just absolutely slashing them up, slamming them into walls, slamming them into the ground. It's just an exquisite feeling combat, makes you feel super cool right away. Do know, though, that this is a tough game. In fact, one of the biggest difficulties with this game is that the upgrade tree kind of feels like it kind of stops about midway through the game. So really that last half of the game, it's all on you. It's all skill to finish it off. So make sure you're ready for a challenge, but if you are, you should definitely pick up Scourgebringer. A Boy and His Blob is currently 30% off for $10.49. This is a series that is near and dear to my heart. One of my first big meaty game experiences was A Boy and His Blob on the NES. I absolutely devoured the game. I was ecstatic when the original Wii version of this remake of A Boy and His Blob came out. If you're not familiar with these games, they are basically sort of a puzzle platformer where you have a blob as a sidekick and you feed the blob jelly beans. And these jelly beans will allow the blob to turn into different types of tools you need to get through the levels. This game has absolutely exquisite animation and really brings the characters to life. It's really impressive. Just note that if you've played the Wii version, this really isn't any different. This is a simple HD up-res of the Wii version. So if you've played that and you've enjoyed it, the only reason to jump back into this is if you just loved it so much, you gotta have more. But for everyone else, you should definitely consider picking up A Boy and His Blob. And lastly, I have a bit of a cheat for the last game, so it's actually more like 11 games on this list, but both of the Metro games are currently deeply discounted. Metro 2033 is currently 90% off for $2.49, and Metro Last Light is currently 80% off for $4.99. I haven't played these games, I'm just being completely honest. These are survival horror games where you are taking on the subterranean parts of a post-apocalyptic Russia. Now, the reason I haven't picked these up yet is because I'm just a big baby when it comes to survival horror games. I don't know what it is. I can handle the scariest of movies, but survival horror games really stress me out. But at this price, I couldn't resist anymore. I mean, at $250, I might as well give it a shot, see if I can handle it, and try out and see what all the fuss is about. But everything I've heard about these games, and in particular these ports, are that they are absolutely stellar and run perfectly on the Switch. And for both of these games, these are the absolute lowest prices they've ever had. It's probably never going to get much cheaper than this for these. All right, but don't click off. Like always, I've got a great deal reel with more choices for you starting right now.
Hanging by a thread, hung up on all the words you said, breaking free from this conformity that you force on me. Everything I do is one big show. It's about damn time that I take control. Put me under a microscope and watch me take control. What's this? I finally read this helplessness. Tired of feeling like I'm upside down, so I'm gonna turn it all around. And and dear God, save my soul, 'cause it is blood. Tired of feeling like I'm upside down, so I'm gonna turn it all around. Don't tell me that I need saving. Finally awake and living. Yeah. The pressure inside was building. I felt under attack, and now my mind's attacked. And I've chosen my path. I've chosen my path. What's this? I finally read this helplessness. Tired of feeling like I'm upside down, so I'm gonna turn it all around. And and dear God, save my soul, 'cause it is blood. Tired of feeling like I'm upside down, so I'm gonna turn it
All right, all you tricksters, I hope you enjoyed this deal video. I hope you found something you want to pick up. Let me know down in the comments below what you're thinking of picking up. And like I said, if you're not subscribed already, subscribe. I'm going to be doing that deal showcase on Kaze and the Wild Masks very soon, so keep your eyes peeled for it on my channel. And until next time, I hope you have great gaming. Bye-bye.
And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin.